Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a Happy Meal card to share with you using my favorite things Tall Hello and the Long Fawn Skinny Stripes stencil. Now I started with an A2 sized panel. I used the basic rectangles from Mama Elephant. You can use any rectangular die that creates an A2 for the same card. I am just going to cover up my stitching detail because I really love that lovely thin detailed white border on my card. Now this is a card that turned out completely different to what I had in my head. I wanted to use this combination of distress inks to create a card with the absolutely awesome stamp set from Fawn actually, because these colors for me represent fresh apples. I don't know how about you, but for me they do. And I wanted this really simple stripe background. I didn't use any adhesive on the back of my stencil, which I should have. So there is this adhesive that you can use for your stencils themselves. It is called a Pixie spray. And well, there are others, I'm sure of it, but I have the Pixie spray, but I was just too lazy. And because of that, my whole design had to change. Now, I wanted these stripes to be perfect, but as you know, if you have a really delicate stencil, it from time to time happens that the stencil is a bit wiggly, and I have had this already with this stencil. I should have known better that I should just have used the Pixie spray, but I was again too lazy. Now, that meant that although I was really careful while blending and pressing down the stencil with my fingers and having red on my fingers and then in the green, well, you know what I mean. Even though I did all of that, the stripes weren't perfect, as in they were a bit blurry on the edges, and that was completely not what I wanted. So to still have something, to still be able to use this background, I decided to just ink blend in between as well and have just a soft stripy look in a complete ink blended part of my panel. And then I just thought that it was just a bit too heavy, a bit too bright and dark for my idea that I sort of had in my head. So I completely changed it up. I took in the end my favorite things product and die cut right in the middle of this area. You know, from time to time, things completely change. But as I mentioned, for my Christmas card that I created with the Snow One Like You stamp set from Fawn from the new release, this was the card that completely changed and why I don't have another card with a new release yet. It's coming, I promise. But I do love this combination of distress inks. It's really bright, fresh. It's kind of a rainbow, but not completely a rainbow. There are some colors missing, but I do adore it, really. So that's why I also didn't want to quit after seeing the blurry lines of the stencil, and I just kept going to hopefully have something that I liked. So as you can see, I'm at my final distress ink. I had more reds than blues or greens, so that's why I ended up using more stripes for the blue for one color than I did for the reds. So I don't know if it's really visible on the video here, but it was blurry. So I added some more purple tape on the bottom to prevent me from ink blending in the other half of my panel, and I just went with the same distress inks over those stripes. And that's how this background came around, but imagine that the stripes were completely flawless. I really have to try it again with some Pixie spray, but imagine that it was flawless. I think it's a really fresh striped kind of background to create a clean and simple card on the top. So, well, while I'm saying it, I will try it again, I promise, and I will try to get that card that I intended to create to get it up. I don't know when yet, but I really want to reuse this combination of distress inks, and I really want to get those stripes right. Also, something that is handy, if you have used the Pixie spray or any spray that is kind of with the same purpose, the Pixie spray sort of stays a bit on top of it, So the next time that you're using that same stencil, normally you still have some pixie spray or any spray on the back, and it still sticks as it should to create that really crisp background. So here in between the green and red, of course, I had to go back and forth to get that blend right. These colors can get a bit muddy. It's green and red. They don't go well if you want to blend them. But I'm happy with how it turned out. You cannot create miracles if you have two colors that are working against each other. So no biggie. Just had to reinforce that blue on top a bit because the red was so intense that my blue on top was a bit too soft in between the lines. So I went just over it until I was happy. And then I could remove that purple tape. And you see this crispness? That's what I wanted from the start. But I really love these striped, this striped area that I had. I had a few booths on the bottom, so I just took a sand eraser and really carefully went over it to remove it. So I really loved this background, so I had to figure out how I could use it on another card that I completely didn't figure out yet. And then I remembered that I have the Tall Hello Dynamics from My Favorite Things, which is a really neat, gorgeous scripted hello. So I die cut it, and then there are several options. As you can see here, it's great with black. It would have been great with white as well. But then I just thought about Laura Fedora or Laura Besson, and she used the same letters. She also created a card with this, but I think it was with the paint strokes stencil from My Favorite Things, and she re-inlaid the same colors, you know, so it is slightly more upwards, and it's just gorgeous. And I thought with this gorgeous blend that I could do that as well. Another thing that would have been great was to use those colorful letters on another card and have just a series of 2 cards. And then I should just have decided between white and black for this hello, because I think that this white helps. I have this twice out of white, and then the one that I cut out myself with the colorful stripes, I will just add everything on top and have, like that, the sentiments a bit higher up. So I'm really taking my time. I also try to not add too much liquid glue because I don't want it to ooze out. You can also first add all of the letters on top of each other and then inlay it. Anything goes, actually, it's all up to you. And then here I'm just making sure that I have that edge the right way up because it's not exactly symmetrical. So now let's add those colorful letters, and you will see, you can still see it. You can also slightly offset it if you think that it is not that visible, but I really love the subtleness of it, and at the same time I really had no issue with seeing the hello. So again, some liquid glue, and then I will position everything straight on top. And then I had to figure out a secondary sentiment. Now there is a stem set, I think it's called How to Say Hello, something like that, by My Favorite Things. Great sentiment stem set. I have it as well, and I thought of using it, but then I was afraid by stamping things directly on this panel that I would mess it up, and then all of the efforts were for nothing. So I decided to take my Itty Bitty Basics from My Favorite Things, because hello can be for any occasion, for birthday, for thank you, anything, for get better, anything like that. So I took the Itty Bitty Basics and I added quite a lot on this black piece of paper. I'm going to white heat emboss it, and then I will use the Itty Bitty strips to die cut the sentiment that I will use. Now all of the others are in the back of this stem set, waiting to get used on another card. I don't know which one yet, but you can never have too many sentiments ready to go. And I really am one of those people that really don't like heat embossing, definitely sentiments. I love the outcome, but it's a struggle for me to get it crisp, and then I don't want to use it, and there is just a lot of preparations as well, and well, That's why I don't do this often, but I really love seeing the end result of it. So whenever I attempt it, I try to make more use out of it. So here I have several sentiments, and if one of them doesn't work out, I already have 5 others ready to go, you know. I'm using my white embossing powder from Ranger. This is a really fine one. It's a super fine detail, and so that really helps with these simple sentiments if you want them to be crisp. And then once I have removed all of the extra embossing powder, I am going to heat set this panel and then die cut one of the sentiments out of it. And I love the sentiment "I appreciate you," so that one I'm going to use on my card. So it's "Hello, I appreciate you," and I just think that works out great. Now I'm going to heat set those sentiments, and then before die cutting it, I am also going to buff off all of the excess anti-static powder. Now before doing that, make sure that it just had a bit of time to cool off, because sometimes you can still smear your gorgeous embossing powder. So make sure it is already a bit cold, and then as you can see, it really shows that black from your cardstock. Now, as I said, I'm going to use those dies. I made sure to trim it perfectly, well, die cut it perfectly to size, and then there are several areas where you can add the sentiment. Now, because the colors were so bright, I decided to add that black above the white area of the letters, and I'm going to use my thin foam squares black from Scrapbook Adhesives. I have them, I don't use them often, but in this case with the black cardstock, it's really fun to have just black underneath. Now there were a few areas where I thought, well, I can see those tiny thin foam squares, and normally they are perfectly the size, but it's just the way that I adhered them, I think. So I just pushed with my craft knife those thin foam squares a bit back, and that worked perfectly. And then I will be using some embellishments. I'm not going to add a lot, but I wanted to add something, and so I took the Iridescent Bubbles Tiny from Studio Katia to help me get just a little bit of embellishments going on. So these have all the same size, but it's really adorable, and the iridescent is just so perfect. I'm going to add really only a few. I contemplated for quite a while to get them in place and to not have it too much, not have it too random, because I'm not going to add a lot. And so they really need to bring it all together. So if they are a bit too random here in this case, since it's so simple, I thought that it wasn't going to work. So there was a bit of a logic going on in the placement. And then I'm using my embellishment wand to get them in the right position. Now that is going to be my card for today. Really simple, really bright, I think. I love how it turned out. I'm sad about the fact that it wasn't the original idea, but I will try to get that done for you guys as well, so that you can see what I originally intended. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to wish you all an incredible day, and I'll be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!